Hello again. Welcome to ManchTalk. I'm Tammy Simmons. I'm your host. I'm glad you're tuning in to watch. Today I thought I'd talk about some things that are recent stories in the news. All seem to tie together in one way or another. They all have to do with taxes, really. Whether it's from Trump's tax plan and how that's going to impact some people's paychecks, or whether or not we should be opening the bathrooms down in Veterans Park, or and also about the New Hampshire House passing a 0.5% income tax last week. It's just prompted a whole array of discussions over employment and salaries and taxes and who should pay for what. So I thought I'd take today's show and just talk about them broadly, not overly specific. But first, let's start with Trump's tax plan and Walmart. So I'll admit that I'll believe that I do believe that business taxes are too high in our country. I know that a lot of people take offense by that, but it's the businesses that employ us, that provide us with the jobs, that provide us with the incomes, that allow us to provide for our families. It's not easy to open a business. It's not easy to run a big business. I've worked for myself. I've worked for others. I work for a small business currently, and I know the trials and tribulations of taking on the responsibility of being an employer. So I'm always willing to think about things not just from the employee side, but also from the employer side. And then with my experience having been a state representative and serving on the labor committee, I often can look at it from the legislative side and how government interferes in the relationship between the employees and the employers. That said, when I file my taxes for 2017, I'll do as I normally do. I deduct my mortgage interest and my property taxes and all that stuff. And then next year when I file my taxes for 2018, that's when I'll really know whether or not I benefited from the plan. I think a lot of middle class and lower income people will see savings due to the recently passed tax cuts. But the reason I brought them up is Walmart, who, everybody on the left is quick to attack Walmart all the time because they claim that Walmart pays such low wages that they force people to have to depend on social services to make ends meet. First of all, here in New Hampshire, Walmart does not pay the minimum wage. They never have paid the minimum wage. That is just scary talking points that are used every time there's a bill up at the State House that deals with the minimum wage. They talk about how awful it is that people have to make $7.25 an hour, which is the federal minimum wage, because New Hampshire does not have an actual minimum wage. We just follow the federal guidelines. So, when you hear people say, "Oh, people can't live off of $7.25 an hour. You can't feed a family of four." Well, of course you can't feed a family of four off of a $7.25 an hour job. But the reality is in New Hampshire, very few people make minimum wage, and it's not those people that are trying to feed a family of four. The minimum wage is exactly what it is. It's the minimum. It's the starting point. It's paid to part-time seasonal employees. It's paid to kids when they're trying out their first job. The kid that you're hiring to file in the insurance company, and they come in an hour or two a day, and they all they have to do is know the alphabet, and they might make $7.25. Although even then, you'll find that in New Hampshire people don't make the minimum wage. But anyways, Walmart is always attacked for supposedly underpaying their people. Now, like I said, I served on the labor committee when I was a state rep for 2 different terms. And one of the things that always was the argument is, oh, Walmart. And Walmart provided us with the data of what they were paying their associates, and it was nowhere near the minimum wage. That was already before the tax cuts. Now Walmart has announced that they will increase their base pay from $9 to $11. Now, granted, I'm not going to sit here and defend what Walmart pays in Arkansas or in Cleveland or in Florida or whatever. Maybe Walmart does pay what those states' minimum wage is in those states. We're in New Hampshire. I care about the wages in New Hampshire, and I know that Walmart was paying $9 or more more like $11 before, and now Walmart is saying because of the reduction in the top tier corporate tax rates, they're able to increase salary for their employees $2 an hour, and then they're going to give a bunch of bonuses out and things like that. The reality is in the free market, that's how employers have to think. They want, I don't think there's any employer or any company out there who sits down and says, okay, what can we do to make things miserable for our employees? That's not how they look at it. They have to look at what can we pay people so that we can get a halfway decent quality level of quality in our employees, but what can we also afford to pay so that we can keep our products at a reasonable price so that we can stay in business. Now, I don't go to Walmart for a top of the end, top quality products. I don't go there for, if I'm buying a couch, I'm not going to Walmart. But I'll tell you what, when I'm looking for, summer plastic bowls, or if I'm looking for Christmas lights or stuff like that, Walmart by far has the most affordable prices out there, in my opinion. So there's certain things that I go to Walmart for. I would go there and I buy my toothpaste and my shampoo. I buy T-shirts there, but I'm not going there to necessarily buy my winter coat or my furniture for my home, or even a bicycle or electronics or things like that. I go there because the prices are really affordable. So in order for them to stay affordable, they have to keep their bottom line in line. So they pay what they can, they can afford to pay. So it'll be interesting, they're increasing their salaries, and this comes at the same time that Walmart has also announced that they're going to close an additional 63 Sam's Clubs. And right away, people are clamoring that that's how they're making up the $2, that, they're still gouging people because, look, now they're going to eliminate all these jobs. But I think the reality is that, the retail market is changing, and it's changing significantly. If you look back, I mean, there are lots of stores. You look at stores like Target. Target's struggling. They have to constantly keep changing their model a little bit. I mean, Sears, Kmart, they're so few and far between that major retailers are having to adapt to what the market wants in order to be sustainable. And it kind of surprises me that Sam's Club took a hit, but I do think that a lot of the things that people were buying at Sam's Club, they can buy on Amazon. And, the internet sales market is definitely booming. I admittedly myself, I buy a lot of things online, not because I'm trying to not shop locally, but because I'm looking for a good deal, and a lot of times they're things that I don't need to pick up and feel. Now, if I'm going to buy furniture, there's a good chance I'm not buying it online either, because I want to sit in the chair and I want to feel the leather and I want to make sure that, what I'm buying is what I'm looking for. But if I'm buying cat food, I don't know that I need to drive, to the store to get it. I can just have Amazon deliver it to my door. So the reality is the marketplace is changing, and companies like Walmart are having to change to adapt. And I do think that the Trump tax cuts will help those folks working at Walmart, and time will tell whether or not all the promised cuts will come to fruition or not. But I digress. I'm going to go back onto my next point of employment and taxation, and start off with talking about the bathrooms at Veterans Park. I'll be honest, I don't know that I think I've been in the bathrooms at Veterans Park probably when there was like Chili Fest or something going on. Apparently they are not open, and we're talking about the above ground bathrooms, not the really fancy underground ones that we're never going to see because they're like historical. But above the ground where the visitor center is, there's a men's bathroom and a women's bathroom, and they're generally not open. And there's a big to-do about whether or not that's right. And I do have to admit that it is kind of odd that there are bathrooms open up in Livingston Park in the north end, but there aren't any in the downtown park. Whether you can chime in on whether you think we should open them or not, but I did find it interesting that the discussion over how much it would cost to pay an attendant has come up. Now, the City Parks Director, Don Pinard, says that we, the taxpayers, spend $69,000 for the attendant at the bathroom up at Livingston Park. That comes out to $37,000 for 40-hour employment plus health and dental benefits, which is an additional 32,000, totaling out at 69,000. Well, if you do the math backwards, that's about $16.27 an hour for a bathroom attendant. So when you're upset that, people aren't making money, apparently you can get a job as a bathroom attendant from the city of Manchester and make 16.27 an hour. So then now, with the discussion over opening the Veterans Park bathrooms, they're saying that the request is that they be open at the same time as the buses run, which would be 56 hours a week. And Don Pinard estimated that that would be $51,800 in salary, again, $16.27 an hour, plus $32,000 in benefits, for a total of $83,800 for one attendant at one set of bathrooms in one park. And if you're wondering if $32,000 sounds like a lot for health insurance, that's because it is a lot for health insurance. That's That's $2,500 a month. Yeah, that's about right. $2,500 a month for health and dental. That's because we offer employees, full-time employees in the city of Manchester, they only pay 20% of the premiums. The taxpayers pick up 80% of the premiums, and the health insurance plan in the city of Manchester is probably the best health plan in the state. Deductibles are very low, co-pays are very low. It covers a wide range of things. They have prescription and so on. And it can be for the employee, for them and their spouse, or for their entire family, and we pick up 80% of all of it. So it is the best healthcare money can buy. It's just that you can't buy it, you can just pay for it. But anyways, back to the bathrooms. Pinard said he did price out a second option, staffing the restrooms with a security guard and having the facilities cleaned by Aramark. And I'm going to presume that he means having a security guard from Aramark or contractor, and the facilities cleaned by Aramark. For $40 a week, this would come in at $53,990, which is $30,000 less than if we hire an employee. $15,240 annual in cleaning supplies and labor, and $38,750 in salary for the security guard. The total of those actually goes to $75,586. So it's really only about $8,000 savings off of a city employee. Although I would say it's still a savings, and we should go that route. However, I'm going to guess that if you put this out to bid, you will find some company who can do this for less than $38,750 to be a security guard at a bathroom. Interestingly enough, they're also recommending $66,000 in renovations, including 3 security cameras at almost $17,000. So if we're going to have these fancy dancy security cameras in these bathrooms, how about this? How about we watch the bathrooms remotely, and we just send a parks employee there maybe twice a day to empty the trash and clean up the bathrooms, and we don't actually have a live person on staff at the bathrooms the entire time that they're open. I'm not saying I have a solution to the problem. I'm just thinking that, this is a lot of money we're talking about. $16.27 an hour to watch a bathroom and clean a sink and clean the bathrooms and keep an eye on them. That's a lot of money. I think the average person working in a non-skilled profession, because that is a non-skilled profession, there's nothing degrading about it. It's a legitimate job. It's legitimate. I'm not downplaying anybody who cleans for a living, because I have friends who own their own cleaning businesses and work harder than I can imagine. But I also know that if you look at what people earn in the public sector or in the private sector, when I worked in a medical practice, the people that work at the counters, the woman who checks you in when you show up, the people who verify your insurance benefits, I'm going to guess most of them are not making anywhere near $16.27 an hour out of the gate. We're not talking about somebody who's been working for 10 years. We're talking brand new employee. That's simply just not what the range of income is in the medical profession for non-licensed people. We're not talking about nurses and doctors. We're talking about the support staff in the medical field. I don't know that most people working in retail make $16.27 an hour. I'm not sure that a lot of construction people are working, the regular just day laborers, they're not making $16 an hour. So I'm wondering, are we skewing our salaries higher than what the median income in Manchester is, or what? I'm not sure that a bathroom attendant should be at the median income. I think a bathroom attendant would be below the median income because, people working in banks, people working in insurance, people, licensed professionals should be at the median or above. But I'm not sure that a bathroom attendant should fall dead on in the middle. Call me awful. And if you're wondering why when I talk about 1627, why, if you do the math yourself and you say 37,000, if you divide it by 52 weeks and 40 hours, why that doesn't come out to $17.79 an hour. Instead, I keep saying 1627. Well, you have to remember that the employer has to pay taxes. There is a 1.7, give or take, there's 1.7% average unemployment insurance that can go up or down depending on how many claims they have with the number of employees in Manchester. I would guess that we probably don't go very low, but I could be wrong. And then FICA on the employer side, they pay an additional 7.65% in addition to what you pay in your paycheck. So if you take those numbers and you factor them in into the 37,000 and then divide it back out, you end up with the lower per hour. So it's an interesting thing to think about. Like, what should the city be paying? How should we be doing this? Should we be putting this out to bid? I think we should be looking beyond just Aramark to see what these things would cost. I don't know that we have or haven't done any of that. Another little tidbit, sidebar here. Glenn Ouellette, who's been, talking about these bathrooms for forever now, he wants the schedule to mirror the public bus operations, which gets me to thinking. So I don't ride the bus. I don't know if I've ever ridden the Manchester bus. I get that there are people who need to get from point A to point B and they take the city bus. But either last week or the week before, I came out from work and it was 5:15 at night. It was dark and it was one of those really cold nights. So I would think that this was a time when people would be likely to be riding the bus because it's 5:15 in the evening. So it's when people are getting out of work. It was cold and dark. Nobody would want to be walking in that weather. It's not a gorgeous summer day or anything. And this bus pulls up at the light on South Main Street, the corner of South Main and Varney, and there is not one single person on the bus. And I check, and yep, it's in service. Not one person. And I have to say, every time I see buses going places, there are very few people, if any people, on the buses, which I've always wondered, do we ever actually look at if this is the most effective method of public transportation? I get that there's people who need to take the bus. There are a lot of elderly people who need to get from where they live to downtown, or from where they live to Walmart, or from where they live to the grocery store, or from where they live towards where their doctors are. I get that. But we have these huge buses that everybody admittedly says there's hardly ever anybody on them. I'm not sure if this is the best use of tax dollars to have these giant buses driving around in circles waiting, trying to pick. Sometimes I wonder if it wouldn't be better for us to just give out passes for Uber and or have an on-demand system where if you're a senior or if you're, receiving public assistance or whatever, you could get a voucher and you could schedule a pickup and we'll just send a van for you. I really honestly wonder if that wouldn't be more cost effective, and it would provide better service because it could actually get people from their homes to closer to where they need to be, as opposed to these very limited bus routes we currently have. But anyways, that's public transportation, and again, I digress. The last thing I really wanted to talk about was the bill that passed the House, New Hampshire House last week, HB 628, that would create a 0.5% income tax. That money could be taken from the employee by the employer and then turned over to the state of New Hampshire. And the purpose of all this is to provide paid family medical leave. Now, keep in mind, the employer's not paying for it, the employee's paying for it. Now, the employer can choose to pay for it, but I highly doubt that the employer is going to pick up this added expense for 0.5% of all the income that they pay out. They can assess the employee. It's supposed to be voluntary. If you talk to the proponents of this, they'll tell you that it's not a tax because it's voluntary. Well, it's only voluntary to the degree that you can opt out, but you can't opt out whenever you want. You can only opt out with this notarized form that you have to make sure you've gotten in this certain window of time, either when you're first hired or in January of each year. So if you miss the window of opportunity to opt out, you're going to be charged this 0.5% income tax until the next year when you can try to remember to opt out again. So it begs to wonder. We already have a way for people to get paid for when they need extended time off due to a medical need. It's called AFLAC. You can subscribe to AFLAC and buy a policy, and they will pay a portion of your earnings for when you miss work. It already exists in the free market. You can pay for it, and then you get what you agreed to. I guess the reason this is that people want it the other way is that they don't want to have to just pay for it themselves. They'd like you to help pay for their time off. This bill would allow employees up to 12 weeks leave at 60% of their income. So out of a 52-week year, 12 weeks could be not working, and they'd still get 60% of their paycheck. And this is all going to be funded by 0.5% income tax. The problem is if you do the math, it doesn't make any sense. If you just take the number of women who are pregnant in a given year in New Hampshire, just the women giving birth, and you presume that all of them will take the leave, because what new mom who can make 60% of her income by staying home with her newborn child isn't going to stay home? Just the pregnancies, just the delivered babies in New Hampshire in 1 year, the leave for just those people, nobody else, the cost of all the employees in the state of New Hampshire, if everybody opted, would be 2.4%. Now that's just pregnant women. What about dads? The dads can take leave. So how much does that cost on top of the 2.4% that it really costs to fund the Family Medical Leave Act? So you've got something's not adding up here. What this sounds like is the beginning of a bigger and more and ever growing income tax. You get again, the proponents will say, but it's not an income tax. Well, let's look at it this way. It's a tax because it's a percentage, and it's on your income tax. This is an income tax. They can call it whatever you want. It's an income tax. It's money taxed on your income that is taken from you and then spent elsewhere. It might get spent on you, but it might get spent on Charlie down the street. So that bill, HB 628, passed the New Hampshire House 183 to 151 last week, and it has now gone on to the House Commerce Committee, when they'll have to come up with their recommendation, and they'll deal with the impacts on business and things like that. So there'll be another House vote on in a full session, and then it'll have to go over to the Senate, and the Senate would have to approve it. And then if all of these bodies all approve it again, then it would go on to Governor Sununu's desk, and that would be a very interesting thing to see what he would do with it. I did want to tell you the Manchester reps that voted for this 0.5% income tax. That would be Bob Backus, Ben Baruti, Jane Bolio, Amanda Bolden, Erica Connors, Patricia Cornell, Linda DiSilvestro, Elizabeth Edwards, Joel Elber, Mary Freitas, Jeff Goley, Mary Hebert, I take that back, Mary Heath, Chris Herbert, John Judy, Pat Long, Mark McKenzie, Jesse Martinell, Richard O'Leary, Bill O'Neill, Mark Prue, Barbara Shaw, Tim Smith, Dan O'Sullivan. 23 of your state reps voted for a 0.5% income tax. Those voting against it happen to all have been Republicans. Mark McLean, Lisa Freeman, Victoria Sullivan, Kathy Souza, and Larry Gagne. So this is the way things are in Manchester. We, for whatever reason, have elected a bunch of people who want to go to Concord and spend your money faster than they can get their hands on it. It all sounds good when they talk about their goals. We want to pay people to stay home with their children, or if their child is sick and we want to help them. That's great, but that's socialism at its best. I feel bad for people who have young children who have to take time off from work, but I don't know that I should have to pay a portion of my income that I work for so that they can better live their lives. There's a definite difference between the Democratic view on this type of stuff and the Republican view on this type of stuff. Lastly, on the note of taxes, City Finance Director Bill Sanders has notified the aldermen of the final Urban Consumer Price Index for the calendar year 2007. It was 2.1%, which was the same as it was in 2016, which was also 2.1%. The city's tax cap is based on a 3-year average of the consumer price index. So in 2017, we had 2.1, 2016, 2.1, 2015 was only 0.7 because we were in recession, so things weren't looking so good, making the 3-year average come out to 1.63%. Now, the tax and spending cap controls the amount of money that spending can increase by and the amount of property tax revenues that the city can raise in the budget. And it caps them at 1.63%. Under the city charter, newly elected Mayor Joyce Craig must propose a city budget that stays within the tax cap limitations. It'll be interesting to see what that budget involves and how we're going to make ends meet. And then it'll also be obviously very interesting to see which aldermen are willing to go against the wishes of the voters, of the people of Manchester who put the tax cap in place and have voted on it more than once, and it passes every time, and see if they can live within the means that we've said we would like them to. 1.63% is all they can increase spending and taxes by, unless they override the cap, and I don't think that the current Board of Mayor and Aldermen have the votes to override the cap. That's really all I have for this week. Nice light subjects on taxes and employment and salaries and bathrooms and all that stuff. If you have any input on any of these subjects, or if there's something you'd like me to look at or talk about on future shows, please by all means email me at no, that's not me. Well, it is me, but I'd rather have you email me at ManchTalk, ManchTalk, at gmail.com. I'm very interested in people's feedback. I would very much like to hear what you think we should be paying for one attendant at the bathrooms in Veterans Park. What would be a fair amount, and should we go about doing it? Or if you think we should just open the bathrooms and not have an attendant, or whatever. I'm very interested in hearing what you have to say. Lastly, if you're a Republican living in Manchester and you'd like to represent your neighbors in Concord, please consider running for state representative. You can contact me at manchtalk@gmail.com, and I'll hook you up with the Manchester Republican Committee. We're always looking for good people in most of the districts across the city. So if it's something you've considered, or if you just moved to Manchester recently and you'd like to get involved, please by all means do that. You can also come to their monthly meeting, and you can always find more information about that at manchestergop.com, or find us on Facebook, Manchester Republican Committee. You can follow me at ManchTalk on Twitter or on Facebook, and like I said, feel free to email me at manchtalk@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed last week's warm spell. It was great to have all the snow melt and the ice go away. Then we had, went back to some more seasonable temperatures, but it does seem like for the next week or so, we'll have some snow on Wednesday, but beyond that, we're back in more seasonable temperatures, and at least we're staying out of those single digits. That's all I have for this week. I'll see you next week. Bye.